pattern is emerging. It's observable across large populations, a perceived increase in shallow thinking. The immediate impulse is to locate the cause within the individual.
The common narrative presents a familiar set of accusations. First, that our attention spans are shrinking. The narrative continues that our collective discipline is fading.
And the final accusation, that intelligence itself is in decline.
However, a pattern of this scale appearing simultaneously across millions of people suggests the explanation is rarely personal. The cause is seldom located at the level of the individual. The analysis then must shift from the individual to the environment, because the modern environment does not merely tolerate shallow thinking, it is engineered to structurally reward it. And it is these systems of reward that architect our systems of behavior. So, to be clear, this is not an analysis of personal failure. It is an analysis of a system, one that has become exceptionally efficient at incentivizing a specific way of thinking. Now, to understand the system, we must first define the behavior it promotes. And let's be precise here. This is not a moral judgment, but a technical description of a cognitive process. Shallow thinking should not be confused with low intelligence. It is instead a process. Rapid cognitive closure. It functions as a mechanism to resolve the inherent discomfort of uncertainty as quickly as possible. Deep thinking, by contrast, requires one to tolerate that discomfort for longer periods. The process then systematically prioritizes speed over depth, certainty over nuance, reaction over reflection. Each of these priorities serves a single function: to accelerate cognitive closure, and, in doing so, reduce cognitive load. The entire logic of the system can be distilled into a single axiom: speed scales, depth slows. And because our modern systems are fundamentally architected to achieve scale, they are, by extension, architected for speed. Let's now examine the primary systems that enforce this preference for velocity. They are distinct, yet they are interconnected, and together they create a powerful self-reinforcing structure.
The first system is the attention market. Here, human attention is not a private state, it is a monetized commodity. Platforms are optimized for engagement, not for understanding. Engagement is highest with emotionally intense content that takes an unambiguous stance. Nuance reduces the velocity of interaction, and because velocity drives revenue, platform design is by necessity biased toward content that is simple, clear, and fast.
This market is governed by the algorithm optimization loop. It begins by measuring simple engagement signals, clicks and shares. These signals make it easy to quantify strong opinions. Then, the content itself begins to adapt to what is being measured. And in the final stage, our own cognition adapts to the content we are constantly exposed to. The loop is closed. Measurement shapes content, and content shapes cognition. Beyond the market, other environmental pressures accelerate this process. Social platforms encourage visible positioning over quiet inquiry. The compression of time in modern communication means deliberation can appear as disengagement. Finally, information overload. The sheer volume exceeds our capacity to process it deeply, so the brain adapts. Scanning replaces analysis. This is not a choice. It is an adaptation to an overwhelming environment. This preference for speed also extends into our institutional structures, the systems that measure human value. In these domains, for thought to be rewarded, it must first be made visible and quantifiable. Consider educational systems. They often emphasize rapid recall and visible productivity because these are easy to test. In corporate environments, pressure for efficiency favors decisiveness and simplified clarity to reduce costs. And in the broader visibility economy, influence rewards confident delivery, a style that, by its nature, often excludes the doubt that is a prerequisite for deep thought. This creates a metric feedback loop. First, the metrics chosen by an institution define success. Second, human behavior predictably conforms to those metrics. As a result, thinking itself becomes performative and compressed. Eventually, the measurable output replaces the immeasurable state of genuine understanding. Operating continuously within these systems is not without consequence. While this mode of thinking feels efficient in the short term, it accumulates significant and often unnoticed long-term costs. These accumulated costs manifest in several ways: a reduced tolerance for ambiguity, a weakened stamina for complex reasoning, an increase in reactivity as a cognitive shortcut, and a decreased capacity for quiet reflection. The process is gradual, and because it is gradual, the loss is rarely perceived as it occurs. And the system is stable. The cycle sustains itself. This mode of thinking maintains the high velocity of information flow. Velocity maintains high levels of engagement. Engagement sustains the economic models of the platforms, and those models naturally resist disruption. Every component reinforces the whole.
If modern systems reward speed, certainty, and visibility, what would need to change for depth to become valuable again?